it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Ben, you had a good tease before we went to break.
Have you ever heard the phrase, and I might have to talk to it a little because it sounds so stupid, but it's a phrase they use in people who create like computer systems and programs. It's called the purpose of a system is what it does. So let me repeat that. The purpose of a system is what it does. And basically what it means is there's no reason to pretend that the intention of a system is something other than the result of what happens. So you could say, we have designed our football team to win every game 48-24. But if you lose every game 24-23, the purpose is to lose games 24-23. It doesn't matter what your intention is. It matters what your result is. If you go in with an idea, a purpose, and your system only repeatedly does one thing, then that's its actual purpose, not this other thing. So to this point where, and I thought this was interesting you brought this up, if you're going to, as you've said, Utah BYU, or do what Utah does all the time, we should never, ever be surprised again that Utah's offenses always look like Utah's offenses. Regardless of what the intention of the offense is to look like, the purpose is to do one thing, and it's what you've talked about a lot. Never turn over the ball. And you never turn over the ball by not taking chances. And so that's the purpose. Whether Witt wants to score 55 points a game or not does not matter. It is not possible with the system. And if that's what's happening at BYU, and we've seen it now the last 2 weeks, it can become a problem even if it wins way more than it loses.
You basically just summed up what I've been saying for literally 15 years.
Yes, exactly right. But that is, I don't know why this phrase came into my existence.
True. I buy into it.
I look at it a lot, which is don't worry about intent, worry about result and what is actually happening. And this is what's going on. There's a reason it doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is at Utah. It doesn't matter who the quarterback. It doesn't matter which good wide receiver transferred in. It does not matter at all.
No.
The system does not allow for any variation or difference that is meaningful in a way that you're going to forever turn into, a Mike Leach offense. Not that you can ever really do that with that type of defense, but to that point, the defense doesn't even allow for it.
Nope.
It's not possible.
Now, what I find also hilarious, and you know this about me, is that people's collective memories are 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, we're goldfish.
To the point that I've seen Witt hire 15 offensive coordinators. I don't even know if that's the real number. It actually could be. How many is he hired?
It's a lot.
But it's an incredible amount. And I don't know why Troy Taylor stands out as the best example, but it really is. But you could probably apply it to everybody. I remember when Troy got hired, they're like, did you see Eastern Washington play offense last year? I mean, he's bringing these concepts to Utah where they're going to be slinging it all over the yard. Man, it's about time. How'd that go?
Right.
First of all, it didn't happen. But yet, year after year, we hear people talking Utah's offense into something, that they're something, that they're awesome, they're this and that. And then you look at like usual signs of that, like, I don't know, overall production, and it's not there, but yet people will tell you that Tyler Huntley is a Heisman candidate. It's the strangest thing. The best example of it is the wide receiver room. It just is. Year after year. Well, this is finally the year Utah has wide receivers. How can that be the same people saying this is finally the year after year after year? I quit believing that in about 2014. And I said on the air, and I got barbecued for it. I said on the air, I'm not going to believe that ever again until proven otherwise. And guess who hasn't been proven otherwise yet? And guess who's still hurt in fall camp? Well, this is the year Utah finally has some wide receivers.
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah. Remember, we heard Damian Alford?
Because-
we heard Damian Alford's name. He had one play this year. He threw an interception. He didn't catch a pass. He threw an interception.
The system doesn't allow for it.
Right. The purpose of the system is
It
what
doesn't
it does.
Do it. And you can tell me that Cam Rising is the best college quarterback since Johnny Football all you want. He's not. He was better than some of the others, and he didn't turn the ball over and had moments. And there's a reason Witt loved him. Not because he was like Ty Detmer, but because he was like Tim Tebow. And I'm not talking about throwing style necessarily. I'm talking about just the way that you maximize or that you play the quarterback, that you maximize the position. It's the way that they use it. Ty Detmer would never have existed if Kyle Whittingham was his head coach. The 10th offensive coordinator, but Jake Keenan is number 10. And all of them, I bet, came in and said, oh, yeah, this is going to be great. I've got that defense. That means I only have to score 24 points a game, and, boy, I'm going to go out and throw it all over the yard. And then you meet reality right in the face where it's like, well, that doesn't protect the defense. So guess what? You're not doing that. And then when you protect the defense, you get in your ear how the offense sucks all the time because you take the blame every time.
Now, here's another point I want to add. It doesn't mean it's wrong.
They won a zillion games. I talk about it all the time. BYU's 9-1.
Yeah, right. It works. When it works, it works. It does exactly what it is supposed to. Win games. That's the purpose. That is what you are supposed to do.
That's the idea.
Win games. But you really cannot have your cake and eat it too with that style of defense. And that mentality that you bring to protect the defense to do what it does so well.
Yep.
That is what gets difficult. And that's where BYU had found a good balance this year where they were scoring 30-plus points every night or every game, and their defense was doing plenty to win those games. But as you start playing tougher opponents and you start relying more on your defense and you start protecting your defense a little bit more, you do end up hurting your offense, and then you lose games 17-13. You win games 22-21. Those back-to-back weeks, if you just flip the jerseys and put BYU in red, we'd say, yeah, classic Kyle Whittingham game. Classic Kyle Whittingham game, right? Drive down, kick a field goal with 4 seconds left to win the game. Utah usually has a really good kicker, really good special teams game. That's how you win. You get the stops that you have to. You force a team to punt 3 times from midfield late in the game because they aren't able to move the ball at all. That's a classic Whittingham defense. And yes, it's no surprise that his disciples are leading BYU and they're doing the same thing.
They're doing the same thing. I'm sure, well, first of all, I'm sure that Kyle Whittingham was fine working for Urban Meyer. You know, they obviously had a good relationship. But I'm sure he hated it because Urban was so aggressive. And don't forget that Urban ran a run offense. Aggressive doesn't mean throw the ball 60 times. But remember, like the shovel passes to Steve Savoy and the creative ways to do the triple option and all those things with Alex Smith. I'm sure Witt was having a heart attack the whole time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, coach, hey, easy, Urbo. I'm sure if that shovel pass doesn't go our way, they're going to have an easy pick 6 or my defense is going to be in bad shape. But as a head coach, that philosophy it's delivered more glory than Utah deserves, but it's the reason they lose games. The few games they lose. And it's happening at BYU. It's the reason that they lost to Kansas. It really is. It's the reason they lost to Kansas. They were in a position to win, and then they said, whoa, hold the phone. We got to protect the defense a little bit. Take your foot off the gas. Let's start running the ball.
It is funny to me, and it's a phrase you've used a lot, which is words matter. Like the words you use matter, and I think it's funny that when we look at Mike Leach, what do we call that offense? We call it a gimmick, right? Utah's, and it's a gimmick defense.
It is.
It's the same thing, right? We say, well, you can't be Mike Leach and then run that offense and expect to have a good defense. It's just not possible. But we don't flip that ever.
Right. Great point.
We never flip that. And it is a gimmick. It's a bit of a gimmick defense, which just means you really value one side of the ball and it hurts the other. Because that's all we're really actually saying about what Mike Leach does. You value so much the ability to put up points that it sacrifices your defense's ability to get enough stops to have an elite defense.
It's also the reason that the best defensive coordinator that Mike Leach ever had was Alex Grinch, and that guy couldn't coach his way out of a paperback. Because how do you get somebody to come in and do the offense, you know?
Yeah.
You mean I have to take all the blame if we lose? And you get all of the credit all the time? Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to limit my quarterback's ability, whoever it is, to do anything? I think if Utah fans want a different philosophy on offense, then they shouldn't beat on Isaac Wilson for having 3 interceptions. You should forget about it. I mean, I've told this anecdote a bunch of times, but it's so applicable. Lavelle Edwards, and I wish I could remember. I listened to him tell this anecdote in person. I think he was talking about Detmer, but it could have been a different quarterback who threw an interception. And Lavelle went to him and said, should I be worried? And the quarterback said, no, I got it. And he threw another one. And Lavelle's like, should I be worried? And he said, oh, no, coach, don't worry about it. We got it. Don't worry about it. And he threw a third one. And Lavelle went to him and said, I'm getting a little worried. And he said, well, I might be too, but don't worry about it. And then they went out and won the game.
Yeah.
Because you give that confidence to the player that they can go win the game as opposed to, I swear to you, if you throw another interception, you're never going to play for this team again.
Yeah.
Nobody makes the team next year because how dare you put my defense in a bad spot? How dare you give the ball back to Kansas with over a minute to play? Because that puts my defense in the position where they could lose the game, you know?
Yep.
And whether you mean to do it or not, it seeps in because that's the philosophy all these coaches came up under.
And if you're going to run that philosophy, run is probably a poor word to use, but what you have to do is be able to run the ball. If you're going to have the best offense a defense like that can have is one that limits the total number of possessions in a game, doesn't turn the ball over, to your point, just sets the opposing team up with long fields, or has 7, 8, 9-minute possessions, drives that end in rushing touchdowns. Because, yes, you're not throwing the ball and then you don't have to. And the problem for Utah this year is as good as Mekhi Bernard has been, he is not John White IV, Devontae Booker, Zach Moss, et cetera, that we've talked about. And maybe an issue for BYU right now is they don't have that guy either as good as LJ Martin has been.
I will tell you this. I think the problem is the spread offense is a bad fit for that philosophy. And Utah's had a lot of success with it running the ball and Zach Moss and all the things. So I get it. You know, you'd save me the correspondence. But give me a team in recent memory that has had the ultimate success with the philosophy that you just laid out.
Air Force. They've run a triple option. But the idea of, we're going to slow the game down completely.
Michigan last year.
Okay, yeah.
What you just talked about was Michigan last year. It was Harbaugh's philosophy at Stanford. Mm-hmm. Picture Andrew Luck. I mean, it works, but you know what they don't run is the spread. Because the spread is designed for the Urban Meyer aggressive, use it, and again, don't misread it as they pass all the time, but are aggressive and explosive and take chances. They do none of that, or Witt does none of that, but he uses an offense that is predicated upon that philosophy to be successful. Witt hates defending against Marcus Mariota. What made Marcus Mariota great? Those Oregon offenses were uber aggressive.
Yeah.
They were pedal to the metal the whole time. If you run a pro style, that's not what it's designed to do. It's designed to be fundamental. Run blocking, running. Don't put too much pressure on the quarterback. All the things. I don't think the spread is the right fit for either defense. If that's the philosophy they're going to go with, they need to go back to the Norm Chow pro style, all that stuff. Because if Nick Saban proved anything, is you can win plenty of national titles with bozo quarterbacks. In fact, when he started getting good quarterbacks is when he started losing. Seriously.
No,
because he all of a sudden thought he had to score 90 points a game because he had these great quarterbacks. When he had A.J. McCarron, he's like, Kyle, we're lucky to win anything with this guy.
I mean, to your point, who have been the last 3 Georgia quarterbacks? Right? Yeah, I mean, they've got some guys. They've got some okay players, but it's not Tua Tagovailoa.
No.
It's not the elite of the elite. They've got some guys get drafted and go to the NFL. They're not starting.
They're these upperclassmen guys that got a bunch of experience and then had all this talent around it and used it.
Yeah, and then a bunch of dogs on defense. But I was fascinated by the games this weekend. I was really, I don't want to say I enjoyed them. Both of the teams lost, and Utah lost in particularly blowout fashion, and BYU's was painful. So those aren't fun to watch, but I thought there was a lot to learn from both of those games, and they kind of revealed some things that I'll be curious how they respond the rest of the year. With Utah being, I think Isaac Wilson might be able to make a couple of throws. Will Utah let him? It goes against everything we've just been arguing about on this segment. And how does BYU find that balance of maybe you gotta get more offense without sacrificing your defense, or how much defense you're willing to sacrifice to maximize your offense? And what's the right balance for the Cougars? Because you can lose to Arizona State if you get that balance wrong. If you play too conservatively or you rely too much on your defense, you can lose.
See, I think they're going to have to really bend on that philosophy because I think Scattaboo is going to run all over them.
He is really good. And Kansas had a bad offensive game. BYU's defense was great.
Well, and then, what's his first name? Levitt, the quarterback. Sam
Levitt.
Sam Levitt. He's got a random brotherly connection to BYU, and apparently that didn't end all that well, so maybe there's going to be some...
Oh, this is a great game. I cannot wait. I don't want to get too far ahead of us previewing this game.
But the point is BYU's going to have to score points.
Yeah, BYU's not going to luck into this win. BYU's not going to accidentally win this game. You're going to have to go win this game.
And the defense did a great job limiting Kansas, there's no doubt. But it's going to be a different animal with Arizona State, and they're going to be on the road. I think the offense is going to have to score points.
And you and I both believe in Kenny Dillingham. He's a good coach.
Dilly.
Yeah, he's a good coach.
Stay tuned. We'll get to more coming up next. Hopefully we'll have a chance to hear from Whittingham at his weekly press conference. But I have a Kyle Filipowki take for you. It's going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Blow your head clean off your shoulders.
Wow.
Not really. Is that over-promising?
Probably.
All right. We'll have more coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, joining us.
Too many wins would seem to be contrary to the plan. That's undeniable. If you go look across the league at players who were parts of significant tanks, I think they're harmed by it. I don't think they learn how to play the game the right way. I think you got to avoid that. You got to have it be that if you don't get back defensively, it matters. I think that that's really important to have these things matter and not just be irrelevant. Like on one level, you're not always playing your best player right now. There's some development going on where guys are getting minutes. You've got to get these guys to have pride in what they're doing to get them to improve. And I think you're particularly doing the right thing when you have 7 players under the age of 23 to be able to develop. So you're not just rolling out there for no purpose. You actually are trying to see what pieces you have for the future. I admire this coaching staff. This is not easy.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I'm not ready, Christian. I'm just not. Not after that. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. It was really jarring during the break. I can't explain it, but I'm a different person now. All right, let's hear from Coach Whitt. This is territory that Coach Whitt has not seen as a head coach, Ben. In fact, the Utes haven't lost this many games in a row since the mid-'80s, like 1984. So Whitt was still a player.
Yeah.
Back when this last happened at the University
Uncharted
of Utah.
territory.
Or close, anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to hear what he has to say because still has a tough team to prepare for in Iowa State. So here's Coach Whitt in his weekly press conference.
Biggest issues in the game on Saturday, no particular order. Weren't able to run the ball almost at all. I mean, we only had 31 yards on 30 carries, which is abysmal. I mean, there's no way to win a football game with that rushing production. 4 turnovers, another problematic area that has been consistent this year. And defensively, inability to make plays on the ball up the field. They had a terrific wide receiving core, best we faced by far. And they made plays up the field. Number 12 is as advertised. He's a bona fide All-American and one of the best players in college football. The quarterback is terrific. And as bad as it was, we had the ball in really good field position in the fourth quarter, mid-fourth quarter, with an 11-point deficit, having a chance to make it a one-possession game, and proceeded to throw an interception. And so that dashed our hopes right there. They ended up capitalizing on that turnover with a touchdown, and that was pretty much the ball game. And so credit to them. They're a good football team. I said it after the game a couple times. I'll say it again. Best team we've played this year, without question. And Coach Sanders done a great job getting that thing turned around in a short period of time. So hats off to those guys. Got Iowa State coming in this weekend. Senior day for a big group of seniors. We've typically had, anywhere from 8 to 12. The last 2 or 3 years, we have about 25 this year. A lot of turnover. Guys, outgoing players that will be finished with their eligibility. So hoping that the crowd will show up, and wish those guys all the best and thank them for what they gave to the program. A lot of those guys have won a lot of games for us through the years. So as every year is the case, we'll miss them, and tough to see them leave, but that's the nature of college football. And Iowa State, really good team. Number one in the conference in scoring defense. Got a good offense. Very balanced, a complete team. Very, very balanced football team. A lot like us offensively in their personnel usage. A lot of 12 personnel. In fact, that's their lead group, 2 tight ends, some 11, and even some 13, which we do as well, 13 personnel. So carry over in that respect, that our defense is used to seeing those personnel groupings, and hopefully is a little better matchup for us than the spread attack that we saw last week. But they're battling for a spot in the conference championship game, so we're going to get everything they have. They've they're coming off a win against Cincinnati. Had a couple of losses prior to that. 8-2 football team that, like I said, is very, very complete. Quarterback's playing well, 3rd or 4th in the league in pass efficiency, running the ball well. They're very balanced on offense, about 160, 170 rushing, and another 230 throwing, 240 throwing a game. So very balanced, over 30 points a week. Running back by committee, they got 3 guys that are sharing the carries and getting it done that way. Two really prolific receivers on the outside, the big guy on the outside, and the slot receiver. So we got our hands full, and it'll be a challenge for us. But our guys have had, even with all the adversity and all the disappointment we faced this year, our guys still have a really good attitude and a lot of fight in them, and we still trying to play for a bowl game these last 2 weeks, and that's still in play for us. And so that's where we're at. So questions? Okay, Justin, roll them.
Okay, how do you think that the new rule about a coach's ability to find players from 25 wins a season will impact college football as a whole?
Okay, say that again. The new rule to what?
The coach's ability to find players.
We can find players? We can find players? I did not know that. Like for dropping a ball, or for not going to class, or I'm not. I guess I should be. If that's a rule, I should know what it is, but I must be ignorant to that rule. I'm surprised too. Somebody better start educating me a little bit better. So, find players. I'll dive right into that after this press conference and see what I can ascertain. How about that word? Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't answer that.
On the same lines, how has this season impacted your recruiting approach this season in terms of high school and high school?
Well, it's going to be, going forward, pretty much like it's been, about 50-50. And it's going to be about an influx of 40 to 45 guys when all is said and done. Now, we're fairly confident and fairly certain that the roster limit is going to go down to 105, which will mean only 20 walk-ons instead of 40. And so that's going to have some impact. But as far as the scholarship players, it'll be about close to half the roster that you turn over, and again, that half of that roster is split pretty equally between high school and portal. Maybe a little lean towards the high school, but not much. It's going to be a heavy shopping season for us in the portal.
Kyle, the last few weeks on kickoffs, it's been kind of a struggle to get those touchbacks. Has that been just like a coaching decision to kick it short of the goal, or kick it not into the end zone, or has it been just guys not being able to put it in the back of the end zone?
The latter. We would like every kickoff to be out of the back of the end zone and not have a chance to return it. And it's a good point you make. And we've got a higher percentage this year, I believe, than last year. Not a ton higher, but I think our touchback percentage is a little bit higher. And going back to the game, that's another big negative. Is we had another just a horrific play on special teams where they returned a punt for a touchdown early in the game, which is probably one of the top 4 or 5 momentum-changing plays in the game. We have analytics companies that send us the report after the game and the top most impactful plays, and it was right there. So that was not. I know it's not your question, but that was another thing that did us in. But no, to answer your question, we would love to never have to cover the kickoff, just spot the ball at the 25 and start playing. Yeah.
Kyle, programs across the country are starting to prepare for the revenue sharing feature and divvying up money toward players.
Mm-hmm.
How, I guess, are you using that approach heading into the next recruiting cycle with transfers in high school?
Well, we're using it just like we have been in the past, except it's going to be a bigger bump for us. You know, some schools it's a huge cut, but for us it's a big bump, and we've already got all the numbers budgeted, spreadsheets galore as far as what we're allocating to each position. You know, how much O, how much D. I mean, it's all mapped out now. It's just a case of going shopping in the portal and filling those needs within those financial parameters.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on that, a lot of programs are finding ways to use third-party entities, whether it be a collective, to kind of circumvent more money.
Oh, yeah. They'll circumvent, trust me. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of circumventing going on. Yeah.
Is that something that you imagine Utah?
Boy, I hope so. To stay in the game, we're going to have to. To stay in the game at all, we're going to have to, because Oregon seems to be the gold standard for all this stuff, and I guess I shouldn't speak too much about it because I don't know for 100%, but that, you know, they're upwards of $30 million overall, and I don't think that's going to drop off with the revenue sharing because they've got very deep pockets there, as do about 15 or 20 other blue bloods in the country. And so if you want to try to keep pace, you're going to have to supplement the revenue sharing. Have to, if you want to keep pace. If you want to be average, then be average.
With Isaac Wilson, obviously in season it's tough to focus a lot on development, but what is being done to promote his development growth?
Yeah, extra meetings within the rules, of course, but extra film time. He comes in on his own and watches a ton of film, so we're doing everything we can. He's doing everything he can to continue to develop and see things quicker, and that was another issue in the game, particularly early on. It got better as the game wore on, but holding the ball too long and need to go through those reads and spit it out or tuck it and run. You know, make something happen. There's a clock in head. You hear people talking about when you're coaching quarterbacks, the clock in head. When that clock expires and there's nothing there, you got to get out and go, because otherwise bad things are going to happen.
You told us to hire an offensive coordinator this offseason. With the regular season ending in 2 weeks, at what point do you start playing together? What's the potential candidates? Is that something you've already done?
That's going on right now, evaluating, you know, what we're doing, what's attractive candidates outside the program. I'm evaluating everything right now and getting the short list ready but yeah, that'll be job one, you know, as soon as the timing is right to get that filled. And, you know, recruits want to know who the coordinator is going to be, and that's something that we will need to have solved sooner rather than later.
3 of the 4 teams that will win the conference title had dramatic turnarounds from the last season. You played all 3, whether it's the transfer portal or what do you attribute to these dramatic turnarounds?
The transfer portal or what? Yeah, the transfer portal. First and foremost, no doubt about it. And I think you're going to continue to see that. Well, look at Colorado 2 years ago where they were, and that could never have been done in the old rule structure. You could never have turned it over that quick and got to the point that fast. And as I said before last week, Coach Sanders done a great job of using the system that's in place to his advantage, and that really is the blueprint for anybody else that's in that situation to completely turn over the roster. But that's exactly what it is, and why you see more dramatic changes than you ever used to in who's up, who's down, and the jockeying for position.
So that might not be necessarily the first year, because a couple of these teams, well, all three of them got losing records last year. You might see it the second year.
Yeah, it's not. It's tough. 2 years in the past, you couldn't do it in 2 years. It was a 4 or 5 year project for a program that was completely down to get back to where you need, maybe 3 years. But now you see it happen in a year or two, and really manifesting that second year. The first year you lay the groundwork, put a lot of the pieces in place, and then the second year you add to that and get some momentum, and that's kind of where you're at.
So along those lines, the strength of the football program for a long time has been able to identify guys that maybe other programs didn't, and then develop them.
Right.
But with people coming and going so quickly, how do you develop them, and does that take away an advantage that you've leaned on for a couple of decades?
Yeah, no excuses, but that was our formula. Recruit, develop, and manage, and with the turnover and with the way the portal is now, that system is, I don't want to say it's a dinosaur, but it is very hard to continue to have work. And so and that also plays into, you got to take a hard look at your schemes, because your schemes better be plug and play now. You can't have a scheme that's so complicated and so in depth that it takes a guy 2 or 3 years to learn it, because you don't have that time anymore. And so that's another conversation we're having, another facet of what we're doing that needs to be streamlined, because like I said, it's you collect all the talent you can in the off season, and then just hope it gels and has chemistry, and they better be able to assimilate the offense and the defensive schemes in that short period of time in order to function. And so that's something that we're looking at hard and making sure we get corrected.
All right, there's Utah head coach Kyle Whittingham in his weekly press conference. Any thoughts, Ben?
I thought the offense took some criticism that I'm not sure was applicable.
Oh, the offense took a ton of heat. All the heat was on the offense.
I did think it was really funny that he kept talking about how Colorado was the best team they've played this year a week after they played BYU. It was not accidental, and very funny of wit, and why the rivalry is great and rules. It is hilarious.
It's a total jab, and he takes those all the time, which I actually have no problem with, and honestly find it funny. But did you notice that the way he described Colorado was like, I don't know how you expected our defense to do anything. Shedeur is just incredible. Those receivers are amazing. It wasn't their fault. They were playing against the 98 Rams.
Yeah, greatest show on earth.
It was
Turf.
I mean, I don't know how on earth that we held them to 49, honestly. I mean, they should have scored 60 on us. They're that good. Best team we played by far.
Yeah.
Not the defense's fault. I mean, Dick Vermeil himself couldn't have coached those players any better.
No, like you said, it was an 11-point game in the fourth quarter. They threw an interception. That's what he's been losing sleep over all weekend.
But you know what's funny is that he started off that comment as a compliment to the offense. He was like, well, in the fourth quarter, we're still in it, and they were making plays and moving it until that interception! Then it was over! It's funny.
It's the only thing that matters.
It's a philosophy. The system is the result. Yeah. So well put by you.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we wrap up the show next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
It's what you want.
Never-ending Story is more compelling than Short Circuit.
No. Stop it. No, stop.
Never-ending Story would win a poll against Short Circuit. Guarantee you. I can't even believe I'm putting this poll together. How do you spell circuit?
By the way, I almost hope...
Do what you feel is right, listener.
I almost hope Never-ending Story wins, because if Short Circuit wins, we're going to lose you for the rest of the show. Show memorandum. Let's just euthanize Short Circuit. My guy is as upset as any time I've ever seen him in the history of this show.
Why? Because we speak truth?
No more Short Circuit. Take Johnny Five and put a crowbar to his head. He's done. Disassemble Johnny Five.
No, disassemble!
Catch Hanson Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two amigos on the airwaves, talking sports. They got it made, Jackson on soul. Loves his tie-dye, Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. All right, Ben, I've got a hot Jazz take for you before we say goodbye based on the game last night against the Clippers, because everybody's feeling so good about Kyle Filipowki. Thought I'd bring about everybody back down to earth.
Okay.
Did you see what the Clippers did to neutralize said Kyle Filipowki and his effectiveness?
Elaborate.
They stopped guarding him. They stopped guarding him.
Yeah.
Honestly, they stopped guarding him. And what that does, because he's a passer, not a scorer, is it takes away all his ability to pass, and all of a sudden he's got no game. I mean, when they stopped guarding him, you could basically hear it through the radio broadcast. He didn't know what to do. He's like, "Whoa, what happened? I can't pass."
So the backstory on Flip and not being in the rotation to start the year is he had shot really poorly in practices and stuff. He just was not shooting well yet. And while they believed in his shot, it hadn't gone in yet, so they couldn't play him because his shot wasn't going in. And then weirdly, through his first 7 games that he was actually in the rotation, the shot was falling at almost 40% rate from 3. And then you felt like, okay, well, if he's going to hit all of his shots, he has to play a lot. And Ty Lue, who's a great coach, said, well, let's see if his shot's for real, and we'll back off him a little bit. And he was 0 for 4 last night from 3. And it did.
It wasn't just 3, though. He'd catch it at the elbow, and they were like, nah, we're not going to guard that guy.
And he was still 5 of 10. He was still effective, but he was not as good as he had been.
He didn't know what to do.
Yeah. So we will see. He's got to adjust.
I bet we see it all the time now.
Yeah.
Catch the ball at the elbow. See, that's the thing. If you guard him, he's got all sorts of options that are open to him.
Yeah.
It's
the hard part about being a rookie and showing up on the scouting report for the first time.
But Ty Lue's a good coach.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he came up with that whole thing, because he comes up with all sorts of cool stuff like that, because he is a good coach. He's the only thing the Clippers have going for them at the moment is their head coach. But yeah, when they stopped guarding Filipowki, and it was obvious. I mean, they just said, no. You just go guard somebody else.
Yeah.
And he had no idea what to do. And you did. You heard it.
He is I think he's smart enough. We'll see how he adjusts. And Will Hardy's a great coach too. Will Hardy's a really good coach. So I'll be curious how he adjusts. But yeah, that's what's difficult.
Well, he needs to make a play. That's how he's got to adjust. But I don't know how he does that. And I don't necessarily think it's just banging shots either.
Yeah, are you hitting 15-footers or what are you doing? How do you attack the defense from there?
But he was minus 17 last night.
Yeah, and you know what the other thing he doesn't do well? He doesn't shoot free throws well yet, which is really weird. He's a very poor free throw shooter. So if teams want to start fouling him, I've had a lot of Jazz fans on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever now reach out and say, like, why does Flip not play in the fourth quarter? It's hard to play the fourth quarter when you can't shoot free throws.
This is why you just need to wrap it up in a bow and just say snap talk and mean everything, because who cares?
The catch-all on social media.
Check it out on the Snap Talk. It's brilliant. Blue what?
Blue Sky.
What is that? What was the other failure that tried to replace
Threads? Threads is pretty popular, but it's basically just a spin-off of Instagram, but you don't use photos. So, yeah, there's a lot out there.
And now we're on to the what?
It's been a massive movement recently towards Blue Sky from a lot of sports people, specifically NBA.
Isn't that the name of like a ranch up by Heber?
Probably. Blue Sky is a popular word. It's one people use. I
Whatever.
Don't think this is their app.
The Snap Talk. All the NBA people are going to the Snap Talk?
Sounds like it.
All right. Anyway, Kyle Filipowski is going to have to figure out what to do when nobody's guarding him, which is a weird problem.
Yeah, it should be ideal.
It's a very strange problem.
Yep.
I got an idea. Don't guard that guy. You got it, Skip. That's Luka Doncic's favorite scheme. Hey, Luka, don't guard that guy. All right. You asked for it. I won't do it.
I'm dialed in.
Yeah.
Dialed in.
If that's what it's called for, then I'm happy to do it. I will not. Exactly. All right, stay tuned. Hanson, Scotty G are coming up next. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.